The storm came out of nowhere, a roaring sea of thunder and dust tearing through the night. Ethan Graves had seen storms before, but never one like this. The sky above his small outpost on the edge of Sector 19 burned red, as if the clouds themselves were bleeding fire. He rushed to seal the outer gates, the metallic shutters clanging shut one by one, when he heard it. A faint cry carried by the wind, weak, broken, and not human. For a moment he froze, his instincts screaming to stay inside. The storm outside could peel the skin off a man in seconds. But that voice, that sound of fear, it struck something deep inside him, the part that refused to let anyone die alone. He grabbed his thermal cloak, slammed open the airlock, and stepped out into the chaos. Through the blinding dust, he saw three shapes struggling toward the gate. Two small, one tall and bent. The taller figure was clutching the others as if shielding them from the storm. They collapsed just a few meters from his door. Ethan didn't think. He ran, scooping the smallest into his arms. The creature's skin was pale blue, her eyes glowing faintly like moonlight under glass. "Hang on," he muttered, dragging them inside, sealing the gate behind him. Inside the warm light of the outpost, the scene looked unreal. The two small aliens were sisters. He could tell by their matching markings, fine silver lines running down their necks. The older one was barely conscious, clutching a bundle that turned out to be their grandmother, an old alien woman whose breathing was shallow, like air leaking from a cracked pipe. Ethan moved fast, setting up the heater, fetching water, wrapping them in blankets. They looked fragile, almost weightless. But when the younger one opened her eyes, he saw the fire in them. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Help! She's dying." He didn't know their language, but the translator implant caught the meaning. "I'll do what I can," he said softly, pulling his medkit. The grandmother's pulse was faint, her body temperature dropping fast. Her veins shimmered with a strange golden hue. Ethan injected her with stabilizer serum, hoping human medicine could at least buy her time. Hours passed, the storm raged outside, but inside, silence. Except for the soft hum of machines, the younger sister sat by her grandmother's side, holding her hand, whispering something that the translator couldn't catch. The older sister watched Ethan with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "Why, you help us?" she finally asked in broken English. Ethan looked up from the med scanner. "Because someone should," he said simply. "Storm doesn't care who you are." The older sister's eyes softened. She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. She looked around nervously as if expecting someone to burst through the door. "They'll come," she said in a shaking tone. "The soldiers, they hunt us." Ethan frowned. "Soldiers? From where?" She pointed toward the window, where lightning painted the storm in flashes. "From the Dominion. They say we carry forbidden blood." Ethan didn't know what that meant, but the fear in her eyes was real. He adjusted the heaters, making sure the grandmother's vitals stayed steady. He noticed strange patterns glowing faintly beneath her skin, symbols that pulsed like living light. "What are those?" he asked quietly. The younger sister hesitated, then whispered, "Old marks. From before the war." The grandmother stirred suddenly, her eyes opening for the first time, their glow a deep gold that filled the room. Her gaze fixed on Ethan. "You are human," she said, her voice weak but clear. "The ones who came last? The ones who remember?" Ethan froze. "You speak English?" She nodded slowly, a faint smile crossing her wrinkled face. "Long ago, we shared words, before the stars turned against us." He didn't understand, but something in her tone made his chest tighten, a sadness that felt ancient. Before he could ask more, the sensors beeped. Movement outside. Ethan glanced at the monitor. 3 heat signatures moving through the storm, armed, closing in fast. He turned off the main lights, his heart pounding. The older sister's eyes widened. She grabbed his arm. "They found us," she whispered. "Please, don't let them take her." Ethan looked at the trembling figures before him, two frightened girls and their dying grandmother. And then at the gun rack on the wall. He had promised himself he would never fight again after the war. But now, staring at them, he knew that promise was about to break. He picked up his rifle, checked the charge, and said quietly, "Stay low, keep her warm." The storm howled outside as footsteps approached the door, metal boots crunching in the dust. Ethan took position behind the console, finger on the trigger. When the scanner flashed red, unauthorized entry detected, the door shook violently. The grandmother opened her eyes again, whispering something ancient and strange, light spilling from her hands, bathing the room in golden fire. Ethan stared in disbelief as the door buckled. The older sister whispered, "It's starting again." And just as lightning split the sky in half, he realized this storm wasn't just weather. It was war coming back to life. By dawn, nothing would ever be the same. The door burst open with a blast of wind and dust, metal splinters flying across the room. Ethan barely had time to dive behind the supply crates as three armored figures stepped in, their armor black and gleaming under the storm's lightning. Their visors glowing crimson, he could tell at once. Dominion soldiers, the same kind who'd burned villages during the border war. They moved with military precision, weapons humming with plasma charge. "Secure the targets," one of them barked. His voice distorted through the helmet. Ethan gritted his teeth, whispering into his comm implant, "Power down lights, engage defense grid." The outpost systems responded sluggishly. The storm had drained most of his energy reserves. The younger alien sister clung to her grandmother, who was now glowing faintly, golden light pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan peeked over the crates and fired. One clean burst, the first soldier dropped, his armor sparking. The others returned fire, blue plasma bolts slicing through the air, searing the metal walls. The older sister screamed something in her language. The room trembled, a wave of gold energy rippling from her hands. The remaining soldiers staggered, their visors flickering. Ethan stared, stunned. She wasn't just alien. She was powerful, something beyond human understanding. The energy faded quickly, though, leaving her gasping. Her strength drained. Ethan took the chance, charged from cover, tackled one soldier and slammed his helmet into the floor. The visor cracked. A hiss escaped as the suit depressurized. The third soldier turned, raised his rifle, but before he could fire, the grandmother spoke, her voice echoing like thunder. "Enough!" Her golden light exploded outward, gentle yet unstoppable, washing through the room like sunrise. The storm outside fell silent for a moment, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. When the light faded, the soldiers were motionless, their armor frozen in place, their weapons melted into the floor. Ethan looked around in disbelief, his skin tingling from the heat. The grandmother's glow dimmed, her body trembling. "They will send more," she whispered. "The Dominion never stops." Ethan knelt beside her. "Why are they after you? What are you people?" The younger sister looked at him, tears streaking down her silver cheeks. "We are the last of the Luminar," she said quietly, "the keepers of the old energy." Ethan frowned. "Old energy?" The grandmother nodded weakly. Before the Dominion, before human expansion, there was balance. And the light that held worlds together, they fear it because it cannot be controlled. Ethan sat back, trying to process everything. He'd heard rumors, ancient civilizations, lost energy sources, myths from before the Terran colonization. But none of it ever real. Yet here they were, proof glowing before his eyes. The older sister spoke again. "You saved us, but now they will destroy you too." Ethan smiled faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time someone tried," he said, checking his rifle. "But I'm not letting them take you." Outside, the storm began to shift again. But this time the lightning wasn't red. It was blue, focused, like searchlights moving across the desert. Dozens of armored transports were closing in, their engines howling through the wind. The younger sister looked terrified. "They come with hunters," she whispered. "Machines that track life energy." Ethan moved fast, sealing the main doors and activating the underground passage. "We'll head for the mines," he said. "They won't track us through the rock." He helped the grandmother onto a hover stretcher and motioned the sisters to follow. As they descended into the dim tunnel, Ethan's mind raced. He'd gone from living alone on a forgotten outpost to protecting the most hunted beings in the sector. Every soldier out there was trained to kill anything connected to the Luminar, and now he was one of them by choice. Halfway down, the walls trembled again, dust falling from above. "Drone swarm," he muttered, pulling his blaster. "They're using scanners." The older sister reached out, touching the wall, the gold marks on her arm glowing. The tunnel lights flickered and then went dark, replaced by a soft golden shimmer that spread like veins through the rock. Ethan watched, amazed. "You can control the stone?" She nodded weakly. "Only while the light listens," she said. "It remembers the old ones." Moments later, the hum of drones passed above, unable to detect them. Ethan exhaled. "Guess it's working." When they finally reached the lower caverns, the air was colder, filled with echoes of dripping water and ancient machinery. Ethan turned on a dim lamp, revealing massive walls carved with strange symbols, the same ones glowing beneath the grandmother's skin. The younger sister stepped closer. "This place. It's one of our temples," she whispered. "The heart of Luminar." Ethan raised his lamp higher, revealing a huge circular chamber ahead, with a crystal core at its center, half buried in dust and vines. The grandmother's eyes brightened faintly. "It still sleeps," she murmured. "But not for long." Ethan felt a chill run through him. "What happens if it wakes?" The old woman looked at him, and for a moment her gaze was young again. "Burning with purpose, the galaxy remembers," she said. "And so will the humans outside." Far above them, Dominion ships were landing, soldiers spreading through the storm. But beneath the surface, deep inside the ancient temple, something had begun to stir. A heartbeat, slow and heavy, echoing through the stone, like the pulse of a world waking from a long, forgotten dream, and Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The tunnels opened into a vast hollow world beneath the planet's crust, a cathedral of stone and light forgotten by time. Ethan's breath caught as he stepped into the chamber, the air thick with shimmering dust that glowed like frozen sunlight. The alien sisters followed, their steps quiet, reverent, as if they had come home. At the center stood a structure older than anything human. A massive crystal, half buried and alive, its surface pulsing softly like a heartbeat. "This place," Ethan whispered, "it feels awake." The younger sister nodded, eyes wide with wonder. "Our ancestors built this temple when the stars were still young." The grandmother, resting on the stretcher, opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "No, child. They didn't build it. They found it." Her words echoed through the chamber. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Found it? Then what is it?" "A memory," she said softly. "A wound that never healed." The light from the crystal grew stronger, reflecting fragments of shapes and faces, beings made of both matter and energy. Ethan stepped closer, his reflection merging with those ghostly forms, his heart pounding faster. He reached out instinctively, and as his fingers brushed the crystal, it sang, a deep sound like the hum of a dying sun. Vision struck him, cities floating among the stars, humans and Luminars walking side by side, the birth of empires, and their fall in fire. He stumbled back, gasping. The older sister caught him. "What did you see?" "Everything," he whispered. "And the end of it all." The grandmother looked at him with ancient sadness. "You touched the heart of origin. It remembers all who shaped it." Ethan stared at her, his mind spinning. "You mean this thing remembers me?" "No," she said gently. "It remembers what you once were." Before he could ask more, the ground trembled violently, dust falling from the high ceilings. Alarms blinked red on his wrist scanner. "Dominion drones," he muttered. "They found us." The older sister's markings flared bright gold. "We can seal the way behind us." She pressed her palms to the wall, golden lines snaking through the stone as it folded inward, closing the tunnel like flesh healing over a wound. The younger sister shivered. "They won't stop." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then we go deeper." As they moved past the crystal, Ethan noticed strange carvings along the walls, and not alien but human. Old Terran letters burned faintly beneath the glowing runes. He brushed away the dust, whispering aloud, Expedition 12, United Human Colonies, year 2451. His blood ran cold. This was human tech? The grandmother smiled weakly. Your kind came here long ago, seeking the same light they now fear. Ethan's mind reeled. That means the Dominion's first war wasn't with you. It was with us. She nodded slowly. And you lost yourselves in the process. Lightning crackled through the cracks above, a tremor shaking the ground again, not from attack this time, but from something beneath. The crystal's pulse grew faster, brighter. The younger sister clutched her grandmother's hand. It's reacting to him, she whispered, staring at Ethan. It knows his blood. Ethan took a step back, the glow from the core spilling over his skin, leaving faint golden veins across his arms. He felt warmth spread through him, not pain, not power, but recognition. A voice echoed faintly in his mind. Not in words, but in emotion and sorrow, patience and hope. It wasn't speaking to him. It was remembering him. Suddenly, the crystal cracked with a sound like thunder, releasing a wave of golden light that tore through the cavern. The sisters shielded their faces. The grandmother whispered something ancient, and Ethan fell to one knee, gripping the floor. Images flashed before his eyes, human fleets turning on their allies, the Luminar temples burning, the heart sealed away beneath this world, and a promise left behind. When the stars forget mercy, a human will awaken it again. The light dimmed. Leaving silence, Ethan looked at the sisters, his voice unsteady. I think it's waiting for me. The grandmother's voice was soft, reverent. No. Human, it's been waiting for all of us. Then the wall behind them shattered. Dominion soldiers pouring in with rifles drawn, red lights cutting through the golden dust. Ethan turned, eyes blazing faint gold. The older sister grabbed his arm. You can't fight them all. He gave a small, tired smile. I don't have to, not anymore. He reached toward the crystal and it pulsed once more. The Dominion soldiers froze mid-step as golden light rippled through the chamber. And for a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to stand still, caught between past and future, between what humanity had been and what it could still become. The grandmother whispered through the light, her voice both a prayer and a warning. The heart has chosen its dawn. Outside, thunder split the sky, and in that storm of light, the human and the last of the Luminar stood together for the first time in centuries. Unknowing that the awakening had just begun, the deep caverns shook again. This time not from the storm above, but from something waking below. Ethan steadied himself against the wall. The air around him crackled with golden light, the same living energy that pulsed through the alien grandmother's veins. He had seen many strange things in his life. Plasma storms, alien ruins, forgotten machines, but nothing like this. It felt alive, as if the whole planet was breathing with them. The grandmother lay weak but conscious on the stretcher, her eyes open, glowing faintly like twin suns under the dust. It remembers us, she whispered, her voice echoing softly in the chamber. It remembers those who carried the light, Ethan frowned. What is this place really? The cradle, she replied slowly, where the first Luminar gave life to the stars. Before your kind came, her words made his heart skip. The old myths about the first sparks, beings who shaped gravity, light, and matter itself, dismissed by humans as bedtime tales, suddenly didn't seem so distant. The younger sister stepped closer to the crystal core at the center of the chamber, her hands trembling as golden veins spread across its surface. She turned to Ethan, her voice soft. She's calling for us to wake it. Ethan shook his head. Wake it? You saw what happened when your energy flared. It nearly killed you. The older sister met his eyes, her voice calm but heavy. If we don't, the Dominion will find us here and kill us all. The core is the only thing that can protect us. Ethan glanced at the tunnel they'd come through. Faint sounds of boots and mechanical whirring echoed down the passage. The Dominion was already close. Drone scanning the walls, he clenched his jaw. Then we do it fast. The sisters joined hands and stepped into the circle around the crystal, golden lines rippling outward from their touch. The grandmother began to chant in her own language, the sounds ancient, raw, filled with sorrow and power. The crystal responded. Glowing brighter with each word, the air thickened. Gravity shifted. Dust began to rise from the floor as if time itself was trembling. Ethan shielded his face from the growing light, his heart pounding. The hum of power rose until it became almost unbearable, and then, silence. In that stillness, a vision flashed before his eyes. Planets burning, ships made of light tearing through the sky, humans and luminars fighting side by side, and then turning against each other. He saw himself among them. Though it wasn't him, it was someone who looked like him, carrying the same insignia on his chest. When the light faded, he gasped for breath, collapsing to his knees. The grandmother looked at him with deep sadness. "Now you remember," she whispered. "Your ancestors were not only soldiers, they were our kin. The humans once held the light too." Ethan stared at his trembling hands, faint golden cracks glowing beneath his skin. "What did you do to me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We didn't do anything," she said. "The core recognized you. It sees what was buried long ago." Before he could respond, the sound of metal scraping filled the chamber. Dominion soldiers dropped from the tunnels above, their armor shining with black energy. At their center stood a tall figure in crimson armor, the Dominion commander himself. He raised his weapon, his voice cold through the helmet. "You shouldn't have awakened it, human." Ethan stood slowly, his rifle still slung but his eyes glowing faintly with gold. "Funny," he said with a smirk. "I was thinking the same thing about you." The commander stepped forward, lowering his visor. "You don't understand what you're protecting. That light will destroy everything." "Again?" Ethan frowned. "What do you mean, again?" "The last time it was awakened," the commander growled, "it tore the galaxy apart and your kind sealed it away. Now you've broken that seal." Before Ethan could reply, the grandmother's voice thundered through the chamber. "Lies!" she cried, her frail body now glowing like a star. "It was your masters who turned the light into a weapon, who made war against creation itself." The ground split beneath them, the crystal core rising higher, beams of gold shooting through the stone ceiling toward the storm above. The Dominion soldiers stumbled. Shielding their eyes, the younger sister screamed, "It's overloading! We can't stop it." Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her away. "Then we run!" The grandmother reached out, her voice fading. "No, the core needs a guide. Someone human, someone remembered." Ethan froze, her words heavy in his chest. He turned back toward the crystal, its light reflecting in his eyes. The commander shouted, "Don't touch it! It will burn you alive!" But Ethan was already moving, his steps slow, deliberate. Drawn by something deeper than fear, he placed his hand on the crystal, golden light pouring through him like fire and ice. Memories not his own flooded his mind. Cities of light, alien skies, human explorers standing beside Luminar sages, a promise made between species to guard the light forever. Then in betrayal, destruction, silence. The chamber exploded with radiance, throwing everyone to the ground. When the light finally dimmed, Ethan was standing at the heart of the core, his body surrounded by a faint golden aura. The crystal now quiet, its pulse matching his heartbeat. The grandmother smiled weakly, her voice trembling. "The light has chosen again?" The commander staggered to his feet, staring at Ethan. "You fool. You've doomed us all." Ethan turned toward him, his golden eyes calm, his voice firm. "No," he said. "I've given us another chance far above." The storm split open, no longer red or blue, but golden, spreading across the sky like dawn over a dead world. The Dominion fleets orbiting above the planet halted, their systems glitching as waves of light spread through space and deep within Ethan's heart. The same words echoed again, ancient and clear. "By dawn, nothing will be the same." The golden storm raged across the horizon, yet inside the ancient cavern, time itself seemed to slow. Ethan stood at the center of the light, his body outlined in glowing threads that pulsed like living veins. His breath came slow but steady, and when he looked at his hands, they shimmered with energy, part human, part something older. The alien sisters watched in awe, their grandmother weak but smiling faintly, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "The light accepted you," the older sister whispered. "No human has ever been chosen since the first war." Ethan blinked, his voice trembling. "I don't understand what it wants." The grandmother's fading voice echoed softly. "It doesn't want, it remembers. You are its vessel as your ancestors once were." Outside the cavern, the Dominion soldiers were regrouping, their commander furious, his crimson armor cracked by the earlier blast. "Seal the exits," he barked. "Nothing leaves this planet alive. Not the Luminar, not the human. Above them, orbiting warships adjusted their cannons, the sky turning a cold metallic gray as targeting beams pierced the clouds. Ethan's new senses tingled. He could feel every vibration, every machine above like distant heartbeats inside metal bodies. He closed his eyes and saw their intent. Ships preparing to erase the planet, he whispered. "They're going to bomb us," the sisters gasped, the younger one clutching his arm. "We can't stop them." The core is too weak now, but Ethan wasn't so sure. The light inside him thrummed like a living pulse. Urging him to act, he turned to the grandmother. "Tell me how to use it." Her eyes met his, filled with sorrow. "Use? You cannot use the light, you can only become it. But beware, it remembers both creation and wrath." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then I'll remind it what humans used to fight for." He stepped toward the crystal heart again, golden streams coiling around him like ribbons, his feet leaving the ground. The cavern walls vibrated as if answering his heartbeat. The alien markings glowed brighter, connecting every surface with light. Above the planet, the Dominion fleet locked on. The commander shouted, "Fire!" Dozens of plasma bombs rained from orbit, fiery trails burning through the clouds. Ethan's eyes snapped open, pure gold. He raised his hand. And for the first time in centuries, the light obeyed a human command. The bombs halted midair, frozen in place as if caught by invisible hands. The sky shimmered, each weapon disintegrating into dust that scattered like sparks. The Dominion crews panicked, their consoles flickering, their AI systems collapsing under a flood of unknown signals. "What is happening?" a pilot cried through the comms. The commander's voice cut through, grim and trembling. "He's awakening the full core down below." Ethan landed softly, the glow fading from his hands. His eyes still bright but calmer now. The sisters ran to him, the younger one crying, "You stopped it. You saved us." He shook his head, breathing heavily. "No, not yet. They'll come harder next time, they always do." The grandmother smiled faintly. "And you will stand as they once did between dark and dawn?" Ethan knelt beside her, noticing how pale she'd become. "You need rest," he said gently. She shook her head slowly. "My time is already fading, but my light will remain right inside you." Her hands touched his face, a warmth passing from her skin into his. "You will see what we saw." The truth of why the war began. The moment her eyes closed, a flood of images struck him. Ancient cities of glass and starlight. Humans and luminars working together to shape worlds. To create suns, then betrayal. Humans corrupted by greed. Dominion rising from their ashes, erasing the old alliance and rewriting history. The final memory burned brightest, a promise, whispered in a dying luminar's voice. "When the light finds a human heart pure enough to hold it, the stars will heal." Ethan gasped, falling to his knees. Tears mixing with the dust, he understood now. The Dominion wasn't protecting the galaxy from the light. They were protecting their power, their lies. He stood again, a quiet resolve in his chest. "I'm done running," he said, his voice low but steady. "If they want the truth buried, they'll have to go through me." The older sister placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll stand with you, Lightbearer." He looked at her, the golden glow reflected in her silver eyes. "No," he said softly. "We'll stand together, human and luminar." Like before above, the clouds cracked open once more. Dominion dropships descending in waves. Ethan raised his gaze toward the sky, the golden light in his chest flaring brighter. He could feel the planet itself beneath his feet, its heartbeat syncing with his own. The wind whispered through the ruins like a voice ancient and eternal. The dawn was near, and for the first time in centuries, it carried hope. But in the orbit above, the Dominion commander stared at the spreading light, his voice tight with fear. "Prepare the purge weapon," he ordered. "If we can't control the light, we'll destroy the entire world." And somewhere deep inside the planet, the crystal core pulsed again, warning, waiting, remembering. Because the war that began eons ago was about to start again. Only this time the light had chosen a human. The sky above the desert burned silver as the Dominion fleet descended. Dozens of ships pierced the clouds like knives, their engines roaring through the storm. Ethan stood at the edge of the ancient crater, his cloak whipping in the wind, the alien sisters beside him, their faces pale but unafraid. The light inside him pulsed softly, echoing like a second heartbeat, calm but ready down below. The ruins of the Luminar temple shimmered faintly, alive, Whispering through the ground, the planet itself seemed to wait. Holding its breath before the coming war, the younger sister looked up at Ethan. "They're bringing the purge cannon," she whispered. "If it fires, there will be no world left." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we don't let it fire." Above them, the Dominion flagship hung in orbit, a monstrous vessel of black iron and crimson light, its front cannons glowing brighter with each second. Inside its command chamber, the Dominion commander watched the feed, his face finally visible under the lifted visor, scarred and weary. He wasn't just angry. He looked haunted. "Begin the countdown," he ordered, though his hands trembled slightly. The light must not return. Ethan could hear the hum of the fleet even from the ground, the light amplifying his senses, showing him visions, the soldiers preparing, the commander pacing, the fear behind their steel discipline. He closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. The world stretched open before him, the energy veins of the planet glowing like rivers of gold, the temple heart beating in rhythm with his pulse, and then, far beyond the atmosphere, he felt them, millions of lives aboard Dominion ships. Not monsters, not demons, just soldiers following orders. He whispered to himself, "No more killing." "Not if I can help it," he stepped forward, his voice steady. "Stay behind me," he told the sisters. The older one frowned. "You can't face them all." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm not facing them, I'm waking the light." He raised both hands toward the storm. And the world answered. Lightning burst from the clouds in golden arcs, forming patterns like sacred symbols. The desert floor trembled, sand lifting into the air as if gravity had forgotten its duty. The Dominion fleet adjusted positions, scanners going wild. "Sir, the planet's surface is changing," a pilot stammered. The commander's voice cracked through. "Hold fire until the cannon is charged." But it was too late. The planet itself roared, the light erupting from the crust like sunrise breaking through steel. Each beam struck a Dominion ship, not destroying but disabling. Engines died, weapons froze, power vanished like air escaping a cracked dome. In their place, silence and then a strange calm. Ethan floated above the ground now, golden dust swirling around his feet. The younger sister watched with tears in her eyes. "He's becoming one with it," she whispered. The older sister shook her head in awe. "No, he's reminding it how to be human." Inside the flagship, alarms screamed, "Sir, every system is down. Even life support is failing." The commander gritted his teeth. "Override manually." But then a voice, not human, not alien, spoke inside his mind. "Why do you fear the dawn?" He froze, his breath catching. He knew that voice. It wasn't Ethan's. It was the light itself, speaking through memory and blood. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Because," he whispered, "we saw what it did last time, and it burned half the stars in mercy." Down below, Ethan heard the same words through the light's echo. The vision forming around him. He saw humans long ago wielding the light as a weapon, not to protect, but to conquer. He saw the Dominion rise from the ashes of those they called saviors, and he understood the truth. This wasn't about good or evil. It was about fear. The light had never been evil. It had been used, twisted, broken. Now it sought to remember what it once was. Balance, not domination. Ethan landed softly, his feet touching the sand again, the golden glow dimming into his skin. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Then it ends here. No more gods. No more masters." The Dominion cannon, still charged, began to hum again, automatic. Blind, without command, its massive core overheating, ready to fire at the planet. The commander shouted into the comms, "Disarm it! That blast will kill us all!" Ethan raised his hands again, the golden light flickering weakly. He was tired, drained, weak but not done. He looked at the sisters and smiled. "Take cover." Then, closing his eyes, he reached into the cannon's heart across the void. Feeling its energy, raw, unstable, afraid, he whispered gently, as if calming a child, "It's all right. You don't have to destroy." For a long second, nothing happened. And then, the cannon exploded into a bloom of light, not fire but warmth, spreading through the fleet like dawn through darkness. Every ship powered down, every weapon melted harmlessly into stardust. The commander stood at the viewport, staring down at the glowing planet below. He whispered almost reverently, "He did it." The humans stopped the purge on the surface. Ethan collapsed to his knees, his light dimming, his skin pale. The sisters ran to him, catching him before he fell. The older one pressed his hand. "You saved them, even the ones who tried to kill you." He smiled faintly, whispering, "That's what humans do." The golden light spread across the horizon, washing over the ruins, the mountains, the fallen ships, turning a battlefield into morning. And as the first true dawn rose over the alien world, it carried no smoke, no blood, only silence. The grandmother's voice echoed faintly through the light, soft and distant. "When the dawn returns, remember the light was never power. It was mercy." Above the planet, the Dominion ships drifted silently, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The war was over, for now. But the galaxy had changed forever. The light had returned, and this time, it had chosen a human who refused to burn. The first sunrise in centuries broke over the wasteland, golden light stretching across the desert like a living memory. The Dominion fleet hung motionless above, no longer a shadow of death, but silent witnesses to something they could not understand. On the ground, Ethan lay at the center of the ancient crater, his body surrounded by faint threads of light that pulsed softly with every heartbeat. The alien sisters knelt beside him, their faces streaked with dust and tears, the younger one whispering, "He's still breathing." The world had gone quiet. No hum of engines, no scream of plasma, just wind and warmth. The older sister turned her gaze upward where the clouds parted, revealing the bright shape of the Dominion flagship reflecting dawn. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan stirred, opening his eyes slowly, the golden glow within them dim but steady. "Now," he said weakly, "we rebuild what fear destroyed." He tried to stand, but the ground beneath him shifted, not with violence, but with awakening from the cracks in the earth. Golden roots of light began to spread, weaving through the desert, climbing the mountains, touching the fallen ships. Everywhere they reached, life followed. Barren sand turned green, stone became soil, air filled with the scent of rain. The younger sister gasped, "The light? It's healing the world." Ethan smiled faintly. "It's remembering what mercy feels like, high above." Inside the crippled Dominion flagship, the commander stood before the observation deck, staring down at the transformation. He removed his helmet for the first time, letting the light touch his scarred face. His soldiers behind him silent, waiting for orders, but for once he gave none. "Transmit this," he said quietly, "to all Dominion sectors. The war for the light is over." A young officer hesitated. "And what shall we call this event, sir?" He paused, then replied, "The Dawn Accord on the planet." Ethan and the sisters watched as the remaining ships began to withdraw, their engines no longer burning crimson but glowing faint white. They were retreating, or perhaps finally letting go. Ethan exhaled slowly, looking down at his hands, the glow fading. The light inside him had quieted, not gone, but sleeping. He turned to the sisters. "It's yours now," he said softly. "You and your people will guide it better than we ever did." The older sister shook her head. "No, it chose you, human." Ethan smiled, his voice calm. "Then maybe it chose all of us this time." Behind them, the ruins of the temple began to reshape, walls of stone folding into shimmering towers of glass and gold. The grandmother's voice echoed faintly through the wind. "Light is not meant to rule. It is meant to remind." Ethan felt warmth settle over his chest, where a small golden mark glowed beneath his skin, a symbol of both human and luminar intertwined. He looked toward the horizon where two suns rose side by side, their rays merging into a single beam. "Maybe that's how it was always supposed to be," he murmured. "Not human, not alien, just life. Trying again." The younger sister smiled through her tears. "Then what will you do now?" Ethan chuckled softly, glancing at the repaired landscape. "Find a home that doesn't burn," he said, "and teach whoever's left to remember." As they walked away from the crater, the world behind them continued to bloom, a planet reborn from ashes, glowing with peace instead of fire. And far beyond the stars, in distant corners of the galaxy, ancient machines and sleeping worlds stirred, sensing the return of the light, some with hope, others with fear. In the void between stars, something vast turned its gaze toward the reborn planet, its voice deep and cold as the dark between galaxies. "So, the light awakens again," it whispered. "Then the cycle begins anew." Ethan stopped suddenly, looking at the sky as if he'd heard it. The sisters noticed the sudden change in his expression. "What's wrong?" the older one asked. He smiled faintly, though his eyes held a shadow. "Nothing," he said quietly. "Just something waiting out there." He turned back toward the dawn, his cloak fluttering in the warm wind. The galaxy might not yet understand what mercy meant, but it would soon remember who taught it. A single human, who stood against the dark and refused to burn. And when the light touched his face one last time, the voice of the grandmother echoed again, soft as morning. By dawn, nothing will ever be the same. The horizon blazed gold, and the story of the human who brought the dawn spread from one world to another, whispered in alien markets, carved into the walls of ancient ruins carried by stars, not as a legend of war, but as the day the galaxy remembered what it meant to hope again.